It is now.
Honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
It's Torres to give Chelsea a place in the Champions League final. The headline has been written. Unbelievable.
Welcome back to the Moving Goalposts podcast. Just going to get into a quick review of the Saturday fixtures from the Premier League. We'll just run through the results as they were. Obviously, Manchester United versus Leicester, full-time score of 2-1 to the home side. What are you guys' thoughts? We'll go around the room.
My thoughts were I was impressed by Leicester. Very impressed by them. Like, they're looking good, man. They're actually looking good. Like, for like last couple of years, you don't see Leicester as someone that's going to get in a relegation battle. Like, I feel like they've kind of stamped their authority on the league. Their strike force named themselves now. Vardy, you know you're going to get 12 to 15 goals out of him easily. And I was impressed by Gray.
See, though, I wasn't really impressed by him in terms of, I like what he offers in terms of he's a good outlet for them a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's a good outlet. Yeah.
I feel there was a few times where he
but I think that's like, he just needs a proper string of games, and I think he needs a manager to put their arm over him. And just...
Do you know what it is? I think this is going to be like, I won't say I don't like writing players off so early in their careers, but obviously this is probably the make or break season for him in terms of they've given him, like, he didn't want to be there last year.
How old is he now? 21.
So
make or break at 21.
Ooh.
I think in terms of whether or not he can kick on to the, like, you know how most wingers, they have that Aaron Lennon complex in terms of, like, they might make a big move. You see, like, Zaha went to Man United and then ended up having to drop back down a level.
Yeah, Zaha's different though.
But how old is Zaha now?
Zaha's
only 25.
He's 25, and last year was probably the kick-on season for him.
Yeah. But in terms of, I just look at Damari Gray as
quality. Zaha's got a lot more quality than Damari Gray.
In terms of, he's limited in terms of what he offers. He's more of an outlet, and then for what he wants to do with his game, you're not going to be able to, like, Cristiano Ronaldo wasn't able to cut in off the left-hand flank and put it in the top corner every game. So for me, he needs to either show a bit of variation to his game or add a few more, like, strings to his bow in terms of not every time come inside and try and shoot for the top corner. Sometimes take your man on the outside, and that's why obviously you said you was impressed. I was a bit critical of his performance in the Man United game in terms of it became a bit predictable in terms of he had Darmian on toast for the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's
but
what
then
it is, yeah.
Once Darmian figured out that he's just going to come inside, he's not going to show him, like, he's going to just put himself in a position to cover the shot in terms of not necessarily going to close and win the ball. Whereas if he took him on the outside a few times after that, it would have really had him guessing whether or not he's going to come inside. But generally, I like the way that Leicester shaped up in terms of Manchester United. They're built for purpose at the moment in terms of they're limited in terms of their options midfield-wise. Obviously, Matic's out. Fellaini's not necessarily up to speed, coming back late from the World Cup, but I was impressed with somebody who you guys will be surprised by. I was impressed with Pogba's performance.
Wow, coming from the guy.
Can you say that again, please?
I want you to say that louder. I want everyone to hear that. Wait. I think we need to give him like his 5 minutes
because of how critical I am of Pogba. People think that I don't like Pogba. Like, it's not a case of not liking Pogba. It's a case of I feel he has a lot of potential.
You sound like Straps right now, bro.
He doesn't have enough impact on the games that I see him in, especially in the bigger games, to warrant, I would say, the license that he's given by a lot.
So the World Cup meant nothing.
To me, we had this discussion last time. It's pointless having this conversation with me. Like, I don't feel the World Cup showed us anything other than he can play disciplined if it's
required.
If required. And in terms of what he displayed again on Friday evening was again more of the same in terms of just being a little bit more tactically astute and doing what was right for the team rather than what's right for Pogba, if you know what I mean.
But ain't that what you was looking?
That's why I was impressed. So in terms of like just...
But when I said to you, it was like, because the conversation we had last time, right? It was more the lines, he can only do it for France.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't my angle.
Or
with certain players involved.
Or that international football doesn't count.
Yeah.
No, that's, I think you guys...
Wasn't that the
It
conversation?
was kind of like that.
What the point I was making was he needs to be more of a focal point for his team in the middle of the park. And on Friday, we saw him getting on the ball a lot more than like I'm used to seeing in the Man United shirt. So
agree.
even in the off-cuff positions that he does take up, demanding the ball, or with like just generally being like, he had the captain's armband, and I felt that had a dramatic
boosted him, yeah?
effect on his performance, because
So
he
how
took a
much-
lot more responsibility for them. Like,
So how much do you think Fred helped?
I think
Fred and Pereira.
Yeah.
Because Pereira
I
just
think both
literally
of them.
neatly sat there and just, he didn't do anything too, like, it's just very cute in his work. Like, he didn't necessarily need to go flying into challenge. None of them really needed to, because it was more, like I said, about Leicester didn't really have any penetrative. Like, Maddison was just, like, in the first, after they conceded the penalty, Maddison was trying to get on the half turn, and it was just about making sure that he can't receive the ball on the half turn, because that's the type of player that he is. Anyone that watched Norwich last season knows that he likes to get on the half turn and slip balls in behind the defence. So just negating his threat, obviously I feel that as a collective, like, Pogba kind of like galvanised the other two to kind of like set in a shape where his effect like diminished as the game increased. And obviously Pogba, like I said, took a little bit more responsibility for the team in terms of, we all know that Mourinho is the 2-0 specialist, so that's what they're aiming to get.
Okay, so that just to conclude it, yeah, because I didn't want to go too much into Pogba,
Yeah,
because I wanted to leave Pogba alone. The Pog,
And plus, it's a Prem review, isn't it?
yeah.
Really?
So my thing is, are you happy with what you're seeing from? Do you think that he has got?
If he can
discipline now?
produce this level of performance like on a regular occurrence, you won't have any complaints with me. This is my only issue, is he will have one of these performances every 5 games, and that's not good enough for the level of player that we a lot of people put him up there as one of the best centre midfielders in the world.
So you want to see more of this
Consistency, yeah.
consistently.
Yeah.
That's fine. So how do you think James Maddison played? Like, I think he's gonna do well. I think it was the right move.
In terms of like him as a player, like Liverpool were linked with him early in the transfer window, and I wasn't mad at the rumour. In terms of, normally when you hear Liverpool linked with a Championship player, it's like, under Rafa this was like common.
So you're not mad about the aspirations of Liverpool if you being linked?
If the players got the significant qualities that I feel can benefit our
you think
team,
he
why
has?
would I be mad?
I think I think you got to stop. Like, I think the Championship level has changed a little bit. So top teams being linked with Championship players, I don't think it's a problem, because I feel like just
the
academies are kind of like improving. Does that make sense?
Let's look at it.
It doesn't make sense, because the top teams are there to play Champions League. Champions League is the be all and end all.
But they're still acquiring players
to sit on the bench
for squads.
To sit on the bench. That's what I'm saying. So the aspirations is for what?
As much as we like, there's still like an English quota that everyone wants to fulfill. So there's still players
there's a
that
minimum.
people look and think, can we work on them? Can we turn a £5 million player into a £50 million player? For example?
I think there are certain
That's always gonna be the
positions where
case.
you can do that. Like, you guys, just look at your fullbacks. You
Exactly.
don't need the best to get. As long as they work for the system.
Yeah,
and I feel like Tottenham done that as well.
You guys
with a
have,
lot of their players.
You guys have last season Henderson, like Milner. Like, you can find Championship players that will start ahead of them. You'll find like Maddison will probably be one of them. Yeah. He may not start ahead of your current signings, but he would start ahead of
anyone. Will
those
start ahead
two.
of Henderson. I don't understand.
You would if you had them in, you would want to integrate them ahead of them.
I look at Maddison as like he's probably benefiting from a genuine lack of number 10s across like up and down the country in terms of English number 10s.
Yeah.
So there's like in the World Cup, we saw England were starving for that player that could receive the ball and unlock defenses. He's probably, I would say, the best of the current young crop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's a good player. I'm just not sure whether he's kind of come along too late for that position, that number 10. Like, teams are starting to play someone in the hole.
Yeah.
Like, you saw that once they kind of got it together, and this is Manchester United, and he has, he's got to play Brighton and all these other mid-table and lower teams. But is he going to be able to, or he wasn't able to slip those balls through? The teams in the Championship aren't as organised defensively, aren't as good defensively, so you're kind of able to find those balls to feet. But he was on the half turn, and there was a lot of good movement before the final third, but in the final third, I think for his development, being there is great. As Lee said, I think that's the right place for him. I think like the way like Puel likes to play is kind of like a Wenger style, possession play. It's like this kind of soft possession type. You know what I mean though, because they weren't really doing much in the final third. They created like 2 chances throughout the whole thing, like, and that Iheanacho, like he had a good snapshot. It was a good opportunity, but you couldn't really say it was clear cut. It was under a lot of pressure. Vardy scored. He had an opportunity before that, so 3. But
he wasn't even on the pitch then.
Yeah, and the possession play was really nice to watch. So that's going to be good for him. Against
stylistically.
Yeah, stylistically against 70% of the league.
He looks comfortable.
Yeah,
that's what I like, and I feel, and this is why I think people need to understand their eyes. Don't neglect what your eyes are telling you. Damari Gray, going back to what El said about Damari Gray. Yes, he looks comfortable on the ball, but he has to know
decisions,
and he has to know his role. Yeah, and when I say his role and what type of player he's going to be, you said the Aaron Lennon complex. Yeah, if Damari Gray scored 30 goals in a season in the same year that Hazard had that absolutely crap season, would you say Damari Gray was better than Hazard?
No.
Exactly. So unfortunately for him, he's ceiled. There's nothing you can do about it. Simon Cowell created the best word ever, the X Factor. This is why Pogs is the man. Because Pogs can play crap for 37 games in a season and have one phenomenal game, and his stock will still be high because your eyes don't lie.
That's a good point.
Can see
that's a very good point.
What the potential is. Don't forget your eyes, and that's my only point. But yeah, I know Jose. This typical Jose performance, and they'll make Champions League if he stays.
Let's move on to Saturday. Obviously, we've got a Tottenham fan in the house with us today. In terms of the Newcastle result, I don't want to spend too much time on like each individual like performer. Just generally, where do we see Tottenham kind of, because we didn't really like, obviously we're going to speak about like transfer business a little later on, but in terms of, I felt that Tottenham, the performance in terms of more of the same pretty much, and in terms of Pochettino sets his teams up, they press on the half space, obviously they've got the quality in the final third, but just generally, like, how do you see like Tottenham progressing as the season develops?
What, am I taking this first?
Yeah, as the resident Tottenham fan,
as the Tottenham fan, I'm gonna limit myself here because I'll talk about Tottenham for 20 years if I could. What I will say is, we didn't make no transfers. Everyone knows this. We are reliant on 2 people. That's the Kane himself, one of our own, even though he came from Arsenal, but we don't talk about that. And Poch. As long as we don't lose those 2, we will be solidified in the Champions League. The performance yesterday, it wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst, but again, it shows what Tottenham couldn't do 10 years ago. We concede, and usually back in the day, that's it. Like, all of a sudden everyone's a bag of nerves. We don't know what to do, and 1-0 turns to 1-1, turns to 2-1, turns to 3-1, and we've lost them. We're like, what's going on? We now have a steel about us that we never had before.
He said that confidently.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Mad smile on the face.
Yeah.
You know them ones like that, yeah. Hey,
To be fair, I can't really argue in terms of like I said, we know what we're gonna get when Pochettino lines his team up. It's interesting because I feel I would have said that Tottenham make the top 4, but then when I saw how everyone else strengthened, but then as long as they don't necessarily, like, for me, it's that it's weighing up pros versus cons. So more of the same, whereas you've got Chelsea who have obviously looked to go in a different direction, or someone that has an established style of playing, has a clear influence over his players, and we're also underestimating his ability to kind of like introduce younger players from the academy into the squad. Like, I look at Harry Winks as a prime example of someone that obviously under Pochettino has come in and showed dramatic improvements. So barring the injury, I felt that Winks was in position to kind of go on to the World Cup and probably be the guy in the middle of the park for England.
Harry Winks needs to go though, unfortunately, and I like him.
Who?
Harry
Winks.
Go permanently or loan?
Because where's he gonna play?
I think Dembele's not necessarily
You haven't strengthened. He's he's
like Wanyama's in, like, spends a lot of the time in the injury list.
Dyer's still kind of there, and he when we need him, he kind of slots in the midfield. So it's because I like him why I'm saying
he needs to go.
Yeah,
I would like to see him stay and obviously fight for a place. You've got Josh Onoma as well. They've got the young kid Amos. So they've got a lot of players that, even though they haven't necessarily strengthened in the transfer window, can kind of come in and fulfill roles. Did you guys loan NG out again, or did he?
Oh, I don't know. You know,
he was there in pre-season, but
him again. He's just 99 pace on pro, and that's it. That's all he is.
But in terms of, I feel that's what you guys lack sometimes. I think
100% that's what they lack.
We had that before though. We had Lennon.
That you've seen what that stage. You've seen what Son has been able to introduce in terms of just having a little bit of pace to the attack. But
that's not all. That's not
Kane
all.
isn't necessarily like blistering.
It's not all he does.
Neither is Ali.
What? Not Son.
Yeah, I said that's not all he does. He's got
Kane's not Kane. Son's a tidy player.
He's very tidy.
So I would like someone like Son.
I'd have Son.
If he was,
of course he is. Son's phenomenal. I'm talking about NG.
No, but I just think if I was looking at what Tottenham lack, I just think you bought Lucas Moura and he hasn't really adjusted to the speed of the
my eyes don't lie. He's see what I love, players that are comfortable on the ball. I don't care if you do a million step overs and lose it, as long as you're willing to do it. Because over time you'll get used to the Premier League pace and whatnot. I can see his ability. I am comfortable with him being on the pitch 24/7.
Even if he's not performing.
Because it will take. You have to. Even when a couple of years ago people are telling me, "Oh, Dembele's my favourite player." By the way, he always has. He has been since he's been at Tottenham. He say,
Musa.
Yeah, Musa.
Wow.
Yeah, bro. He doesn't lose the ball. He's strong and he is deceptively skillful.
Oh, I liked Musa, but I just don't think
realise how phenomenal this. I'll be honest, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm surprised he's still here.
What, in the middle of the pitch?
Yeah, I don't.
In the middle of the pitch, though.
I can see the disgust on Lee's face.
Yeah. In terms of like, he's comfortable on the ball, yeah, but he doesn't do anything in terms of everything is
disgust. Disgust. Can we have a word? Can we have a word from Lee, please?
I had a discussion with Els the other day, yeah, and he was saying to me, "Oh, but he doesn't score goals. Like, what does he do as a midfielder?"
Well, I'm confused.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to tell you. Unlike you, I can tell you what Dembele does. You can't tell me what Henderson does. Yeah? You can't tell me what Henderson does. I can tell you what Dembele does.
I can tell you what Henderson does. I can sit here and list off real things that Henderson does.
So I'm going to tell you.
I just don't. Do you know what it is? I don't like caping for people just because, innit? Like, I have my Henderson agenda. He's the captain of my club, so I'm never going to talk negatively about him. I can list his qualities if you want me to, but that's a whole nother conversation. Proceed.
So Dembele, yeah. When he first came to Tottenham, people was expecting him to be a Lampard, to score your 10 to 15 goals in a season and make your assists. So people, when he didn't do that,
I remember he came to the Premier League as a striker.
No, yeah, hold on.
He's worked his. And like FIFA, there's this gif like where he was like left
What
mid,
do you call it? Rooney
attacking
factor.
There you
mid.
go. The
Yeah.
Rooney factor. I was about to say this. This is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, Rooney should never have been a striker. If you look at his individual qualities, he's not a striker. Dembele was never a striker. If you look at his individual qualities, he was
That's
a
a lie.
defensive midfielder.
I just think he adapted
Strikers don't have the
because he's
passing
a
range
lazy
that Rooney does, bro.
So
I just
that
think
just means he can
Dembele
strike
is
a ball
lazy.
very clean.
I just think Dembele is lazy.
He is lazy.
definitely-
Ibrahimovic was lazy. That is totally irrelevant. Yeah.
But-
My point is, he's comfortable on the ball, and once he knew what type of player he was, which is you hold the ball in the middle of the park, go past one and open up the gaps for someone else. He has the ability to dip past the player.
So
once
what,
that
he's like
eradicates
Jack
that,
Wilshere? No, because that's what Jack
yeah,
Wilshere
but without
was.
being injured.
He just
without being
like
injured.
dribbles through a couple lines, passes the ball, and
But the point is that creates so much space because now it's not 1-for-1. You've taken two people out of the game now. So this is why he's an unsung hero, because people don't realize what he does. When you watch the
See
guy
what
live,
he does,
he's
but
amazing.
in terms of,
Bruv.
you said he's your favourite player.
He's my favorite player.
That's
I
a
want-
shit version of Busquets, bro. At least you know what you get. Like, this is why I say to you, like, what's the point when you've seen better? Like, you can't say someone's your best player if you've seen quality.
My favorite
of,
Tottenham player, bro. He's not
I'm
my
saying-
favorite player.
but
Why
that was
wouldn't
my
Christian
favourite Tottenham player. I'm saying
Eriksen
you-
come above?
But this is my point.
Dembele.
How can you look at Dembele?
Dembele's
How can you look at Busquets, yeah? Because, barring Tottenham, right?
Yeah.
Barcelona's your favourite team.
Yeah.
You can't watch Busquets play and then say Dembele's your favourite Tottenham player.
Of course I can. Because I know what
That's a real life contradiction.
No, it's not a
It's
contradiction.
mad to
It's
me.
not a contradiction. Because
Oh,
the amount of
God.
goals that I have seen that have come from him because he's unlocked the defence just because he's dipped the shoulder and gone past one player and totally taken out the lines. It's ridiculous. I've seen it so much times.
We're gonna move on from
on this
Dembele, 'cause
bombshell.
I'm done with
we
the
need to move on to the next result.
We'll start with Everton. Wolves.
Okay.
Interesting because everyone was talking about the I would say the money spent by Marco Silva on Richarlison, or what I would like to call Brazilian Richard.
Don't disrespect my man.
No, do you know what it is? Yeah, he's in my
Richard until
fantasy.
he earns his
He's
This is my new thing about all Brazilians. Until you earn your Brazilianness, yeah? Because I think they've lost their identity, yeah?
the finesse.
Bro, you're getting English names from me, bro.
The finesse on
Richard.
that second goal, man.
No,
I'm
that
not gonna
was
lie, it was
was
a
class.
tidy finish. But
Yeah,
in
man.
terms of, like, I'm a bit confused because obviously we're seeing Everton. Obviously, they spent big late in the window, and those faces are obviously gonna come into the team and obviously strengthen what they already had. But I think it's gonna be interesting because the one area where I thought that they needed someone, that I don't think they've really gone and strengthened.
Where's that?
the centre of, like, the centre backs?
Well, it's Marco Silva. He can. Oh, the centre backs.
Yeah, they've got Michael Keane. They've bought Yerry Mina, but I'm not a fan of Yerry Mina.
But just because you're not a fan of Yerry Mina doesn't
Didn't
mean the
they
manager.
loan,
They've gone to strengthen it.
That's the point.
They got Keane.
Didn't they get Zuma?
Oh yeah, shit.
Didn't
I
they loan
forgot
Zuma
about
as
that.
well? Right?
So they've got a whole brand new backline.
So they strengthened.
They strengthened.
And Jags just signed his own death warrant by getting a red card yesterday,
Yeah.
like a chief.
Yeah. So now he's going to be out.
We'll
So
see,
he's
because like
done.
I said again,
He's
I'm not
done.
a fan of Yerry Mina, but we'll see how he shapes up.
It's gonna-
with the
it's
rest
gonna-
of the team.
Physicality wise, he's 100% going to adapt to Premier
Well,
League.
yeah, I think.
His positioning is what everyone questions, and his actual ability on the
Did you
ball.
not see the last
I don't-
game of the
I don't
season for
think-
Barcelona?
Yeah, everyone's seen it. That went viral. But I just think
It was
that.
disgusting. It was horrid.
But I think with Keane there, who is very basic but a good defender, and then having someone like that who's probably a better player and has probably a bit more about him, speedier, that it can work. Like Marco Silva is a good coach. Like, he's a good coach defensively. He brings the one thing I like about him, even though he's kind of become
This mythical
popular. Yeah, he has. His teams are just very balanced. Like, when you watch them play against big teams, they set themselves up in a way they don't drop too deep, and they're still able to kind of cope.
My one question mark is in terms of Marco Silva. We haven't seen him do what he does over a whole season. Remember, he came in late at Hull, had an effect, but then they still got relegated.
Yeah.
And then last season with Watford again had an effect, but then the effect kind of died. So I'm going to be watching Everton a little more closely.
I think, especially with the misfit bunch of players that Watford had, when a team comes in for your manager, you know, Richarlison dropped off, Marco Silva, it just, as soon as I think it got to November, December, as soon as the approach was made, everything just dropped off. So I wouldn't say that it has as much to do with his ability as a coach.
It's more just the morale of the players,
the situation, because it's also Watford. Like, they brought in last 2 seasons, I think, like they brought in like 8 players last year, and then like 11 players the year before.
Oh, okay.
And then when you kind of got that mixed bag, and then someone's coming in for your manager.
They've had ridiculous amount of managers as well.
Yeah, like
ridiculous.
So it's the club's already unstable. So
it's stable in terms of the way that it's run, but it's very like,
and they've also got a level of quality where you would assume that they're not going to be relegated until it becomes like a Sunderland type issue if these problems persist. They persist. But I think they did well. 10 men, and again I think it just tells you a lot about the coach in terms of the way they set up to play against 11 men, and the amount of quality that Wolves had. They didn't look like they weren't in their box for, you know, on the edge of their box for 90 minutes. They were actually playing. They were playing them. They were, you know, giving it a good go.
Since we're on the topic of Watford, we might as well
move on to that as well.
But we didn't speak about Wolves.
Wolves.
I think everyone's going to be like quietly watching Wolves and rooting for Wolves behind closed doors, because they have a very attractive, like, it's very, like, he's come in and he galvanised the current crop of players, and he sprinkled a little bit of quality in there. So I was watching Wolves last season in the Championship, and again they played a reasonably attractive style of football. So you add a little bit more quality. Obviously they've brought in a few Portuguese faces who have been on the continent and experienced in terms of winning leagues. Like Moutinho, he's won, and
it's probably for him the right time to come to the Prem. He's a small guy, he's older, but he's still going to be able to just do what he wants.
Why are you upset?
That's hurt my feelings.
Why?
Moutinho, when he went, I just like, why
Wolves?
Yeah.
You thought that he could have gone to like a team higher in the league?
Do you know what it is? I just don't like being wrong. And I had high hopes with this guy.
Back in the day?
Yeah. And he just
had a decent enough career.
And that's the problem. It's been decent, and I don't think his career has
reached
fitted the potential that he had. He's not as bad as Charisma, but he's had the Charisma moment.
I think he'll be, the experience that he has will
for Wolves. It's a good signing. For Wolves, it's a good signing without a shadow of a doubt. But as long as he gets up to the pace of the Premier League, because there's no doubt in his technical ability. Let's see if he can handle the pace now on a week-to-week basis.
Cool. So Watford again, like, it's predicting the Wolves the Watford starting lineup on a week-to-week basis is absolutely madness. The funniest thing about it is I was watching Sky Sports have a segment called Fantasy Football where they try and predict the teams, and then obviously based off that they pick a fantasy 11 for the week, and Dean Ashton pretty much got it spot on in terms of the lineup. Obviously Pereira, he highlighted Pereira, so I was a bit pissed that I didn't follow the advice. 2 reasonable finishes, something that you would
reasonable.
No, do you know what it is? Because I've watched Pereira over the years, it wasn't a surprise that he was able to keep the first volley down. It's not an easy skill for those that have played football, but I wasn't surprised because I know the quality that he has. Obviously Decore signed a new deal. Yeah. So
good for them in the middle.
In the middle of the park, him and Kapure keep it ticking over. And what I like about Watford is the fact that even though they don't really have they've got 2, I would say, throwback centre forwards. It's a real part. Like they play a real partnership because even like I think with someone like Troy Deeney, his style of play, you have to throw someone around him. He's not gonna get around. So you need someone that's gonna be able to stretch teams in behind and obviously play off his flick-ons. And I like seeing that old school style of football, like it's real 4-4-2. Get it out. Get it out.
Heskey own.
Do you know what it is?
Troy is the new Heskey. I can't.
Yeah.
Do you know 2 years ago, people trying to give him an English shirt.
No, but in terms of, I look at it like, you know, sometimes it's just good to see that element of like, that's the era that I grew up watching football in. Like the fullbacks, they get nice and wide.
Oh my god!
They don't even like. You know what it is, yeah. The wingers at Watford, yeah, they don't even have like an ounce of slack. They just want to get crosses into the box.
Get your head down. Run the rings,
and it's just nice. I find it refreshing to watch Watford because there's not
chalk in your boots.
There's not too many teams that are still doing that, and obviously the fact that they've been able to kind of cement a place in whether it be mid-table or the lower half of the table, just doing what they do well.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not really sure about Brighton this season. Again, a lot of new faces. I like what he done last year.
I think he might do it again. I just think that
I'm worried. I'm a little worried, man.
I think he's just similar to like that those coaches that will get you 40 points. The mythological 40 points that will save you.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chris Hughton, can he win 12 matches in the Premier League? Yeah, he probably can. Like, I think that there are not so many, but there are two distinctly bad sides. Well, one very, very bad side that's definitely going to go down, who I think is Cardiff.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be embarrassing.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Cardiff sorry,
do
you know what it is? I was
mad.
Through the whole pre-season. I was looking. I was keeping a side eye on their business because I know Neil Warnock. Obviously, he loves the Championship.
He loves the Championship. There was rumours he was going to kick.
Refused to come to the Premiership. He does. It's like he doesn't want to come to the Premiership
because he knows he's level.
Shook. Yeah, he's shook.
But that's good. I like that.
I don't like that, man. He's shook. Like, give it a go.
Retire,
he's had to go though. He's had 2.
No, but do you know how many teams he's got promoted? But then he will leave.
He will leave
or just
like
Sheffield United. I remember he came to the Premier League and he actually stayed.
Those relics need to be gone from football, man.
I don't know why
he's ruined football, bro.
But that's because he will get the money involved. He will get the teams promoted, and then at least, like, even if they get relegated, you know, the board are eating, innit? Like, so it's all those parachute
those sort of managers keep the infrastructure of what the English game, quote unquote, is meant to be about.
Yeah,
like they don't bring nothing innovative.
He was celebrated for what being they finished like 24th or 20th, in between 20th and 24th in terms of all the attacking stats, like possession, like. Touches.
But they got promoted, didn't it?
But yeah, but but this is the thing, yeah. They're being celebrated for that. Like, they got promoted, like they barely touched the ball. Like, it's just mad. Like the amount of shots on target and all of these other stats. Like, and they're being celebrated for it. And then they'll come to the Prem, and then they'll just get whacked and then go back down. Like.
Exactly, you're just taking up space.
Yeah, it is.
You're actually taking up space.
It is. It really is.
Neil Warnock, I actually respect the guy because he's found a niche in his market and he's found a way to make himself relevant.
No, man, but then he will try and like talk about other managers all of these and tell you about how other managers are this or that. Like, bro. He has so he miles off, even though his level is far below the level of the managers that he's talking about.
He's Ryan Prem manager, bro.
I don't like that. I'll tell you why, yeah. And I'm gonna bring it to Tottenham very briefly. For 26 years of my life, it's been absolutely hell as a Tottenham fan. And I've been in a position where I wasn't allowed to have an opinion on teams that are higher than me because Tottenham is low or Tottenham is not as good. People, as long as I know my position as a Tottenham fan 26 years ago, for the last 26 years. The last 4 years has been good. But as long as I know my position as a Tottenham fan, I can say, listen, I know we're not great, but Liverpool are not that great either. But I don't get the respect to say because Tottenham
are
is
you
not that great.
comparing
So,
Liverpool and Tottenham?
no, what I'm saying is Neil Warnock has, and by the way, yes, I am. But what I'm trying to say is Neil Warnock
Jeff.
has Neil Warnock, has the right to say, do you know what? I don't know what Jose Mourinho's doing. Like, he should have done this. He should have done this. Why is his opinion rejected? Because
I'm not gonna lie.
a rubbish manager.
You can
That makes no
say
sense.
you can question another manager, like in a sense of when has Neil Warnock, like Ian Holiday is a very outspoken manager that has a very similar track record in terms of the Championship. However, when Neil Warnock got his Blackpool team up, they actually played decent football. Neil Warnock's teams do not even look remotely capable of playing an attractive style of football.
Tony Pulis has never have it anyway.
No, but Tony Pulis,
You can.
Tony
Pulis will play like
still
bad football and
adapted.
finish mid-table.
Yeah, like he's
no
gonna
Warnock
play
will
shit football and
a
still be in a
terrible brand of-
relegation battle.
and not come any place other than 20th. Like,
What's the point?
Because
What is the point?
Because he, again, my point is the reason why I like and respect him, and I feel that he knows his role, is because he's never argued otherwise. He's in the media, come out and said, I am a Championship manager. That is no ambition whatsoever. You have to love it. If he knows,
have to love
if
it.
you
You don't
have to love
you do,
it. This is
because
your
if he knows that he cannot manage in the Premiership,
I don't celebrate mediocrity, so I'm not gonna give him any respect if he wants to be mediocre. If you want to be mediocre, be mediocre.
But he is being
That's your
mediocre.
business.
But he
In the
is.
Championship.
So what? I meant to celebrate
is.
that and respect him
It's
for it.
not celebrate. It's called. You have to respect.
No,
it.
he has
knows
to done that, bro.
Then he has to respect others, though.
Yeah.
He's always he had a
disrespecting.
gripe about West Ham for years. Wouldn't shut up
Remember
about West
Wolves
Ham
last season?
Bruv,
Last season he
like,
kicked
he's
off.
always moaning about something, bruv. Like, just go and be a granddad. Like, I'm sure your wife would be happy to welcome you back home, innit? Like, you're travelling up and down the country for 9 months of the season, bruv. You're nearly 70, man. Go sit down, man.
Cholesterol's probably through
take
the
a
roof.
severance package, man. I'm sure the Cardiff, the
Whoever
Cardiff
gets
will pay
relegated this
you well.
year will employ Neil Warnock because they know without a shadow of
Nah,
a
they
doubt
won't. Out of
they're
reputation,
gonna come up.
They won't. Like, Cardiff can do it, yeah, because like
They just need to come back.
Yeah, it will be some mid-table side. Like, Cardiff went down and they were desperate. It won't be a side that comes down straight away. They will attempt to bring in someone who's gonna play attractive football. That Neil Warnock is a last resort. Like, he's a necessary. Like,
There's so
don't
many
get me wrong. Like,
decent
I don't like it,
alternatives.
but then they're necessary because at least you know. All right, cool. Like, the fans ain't gonna be on side, but we get this guy in and he will at least get us up there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, I don't have to like it. Like,
No, I understand that. I understand that. But the problem isn't Neil Warnock. The problem is money. The money that
Yeah.
you get in the Premiership
Yeah,
is
I'd
so
agree with that.
vast that, like what you was alluding to, is he's a necessary evil.
What I will say is, yeah, just to round up on this, yeah, like, he gets a Premiership budget, yeah, which in comparison to Fulham and in comparison to Wolves isn't necessarily much, but he still goes to like 4 of his signings are from the Championship. Like, there isn't a whole European like,
and he's still starting Sol Bamba.
that,
Like,
for me, that just shows you the level of the level. He hasn't even tried to go on the continent and find like someone that would want to come and just
He's got no
highlight
connections
them.
though. What connections has he got?
Exactly. Fuck off.
this is what I'm saying. Like, go, man.
Are we still talking about fucking Warnock, bro?
So,
come,
there's
let-
a couple of results probably.
No, there's just literally, we're not going to spend too much time on Chelsea, because we kind of discussed what we thought. Obviously,
Yeah.
we have our thoughts on Morata. I think they definitely need to bring in a new centre forward, and loaning Batshuayi out, I don't think it's going to be helpful to their cause.
Do you rate Batshuayi? Yeah.
I don't rate him, but you need someone. For me, you can't rely on Morata to score 20 goals.
I think you can. I think you can.
We'll see.
I think you can. There's no. Yeah, I was skeptical of him.
We had this discussion last time.
I'm not gonna. Okay, but I wasn't here last time. But I was skeptical of him when he left Real Madrid, and then he went to Juve, done the business, went back
But
to
he
Real
only
Madrid,
scored 15 goals.
Done the
that
business.
season.
No, but it's the important goals. It's the Champions League goals he scores that really caught my eye. And so I thought to myself,
Yeah, I was fooled too.
The ability is still there. The ability is there. But you know what? Let's see the season. I would back him. I would back him.
You see some of your comments, some of your comments is making me realise why you've been a Tottenham fan your whole life.
Well, that I made what?
It's
Say that again,
shocking,
man.
bro. Shocking. I'm done. Anyway, can we move on from this?
Morata, Chelsea.
They need another striker. 100%.
Bournemouth.
Because of Lombard Schreier, yeah. Not because Morata won't do the business.
I think Morata needs to be on the bench.
Wow.
My personal thing, but anyway.
Yeah, all he does is he chests the ball down there and tries to find the fullback.
Do you know what? Yeah,
Man's Bambi on ice, cuz. I can't handle that guy.
You know what? Yeah, I captained him on my fantasy. I thought, you're playing Huddersfield, grab one. I was going through the live feed yesterday. I didn't see him shoot once, bruv. They won 3-0. I was praying, going through the live feed, you know, and I was like, I captained him. I was like, alright, first game of the season, let me take a chance. I still have Lacazette, but I thought, let me captain him. It's Huddersfield. They won 3-0, man, didn't take one shot. Anyway.
Yeah, Bournemouth, Eddie Howe, obviously,
I like him.
continues doing what he does well. They play what we would like to say, they're easier on the eye than some of the teams in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Fraser was someone that obviously he was quite vocal about his ability to put together consistent performances. So he's someone that I've witnessed like take a game by the scruff of the neck. The Liverpool game from 2 seasons ago,
Arsenal,
where he came on against Arsenal last year. So he said he's trying to kick on to that level and produce at that level of performance regularly. In terms of their centre forwards, I think having a fit Callum Wilson will only be beneficial, and Josh King obviously in the mix as well.
Who do you prefer, Josh King or Callum?
I think Josh King is a better player.
I think Josh
Most
King as
definitely.
well.
Obviously they've got the old battle horse Jermaine Defoe to keep them on their toes. So if they're not
He'll
performing,
grab some important goals.
he'll come in and
legend.
Maybe a handful, but he'll grab
He
5,
is.
6.
So I think
maybe.
Bournemouth are
Yeah,
probably
maybe
this is
even
the
10.
season
He's a
where
legend.
Maybe.
they may kick on in terms of they spent big for Bournemouth.
Well, last year was a bad season for them.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of their expectation, people were saying that they were, people were talking about Eddie in terms of England,
to Arsenal at one point.
going to Arsenal, getting a bigger job. And last season they didn't do too well. So I think this is, and mainly that's because of their defence. Attacking, going forward, they're quite easy on the eye.
Do you know what I
So-
will say about that? Just to counter what you're saying, because Bournemouth are a team that I've watched like regularly since they've come up from the Premier League. Last season, I think they had like some really like they say you create your own luck, but they got a lot of poor decisions in terms of penalties. Like a lot of the games that they lost or that they ended up drawing weren't because they do, like a lot of the time, even against some of the bigger teams, they play or they have periods in game where they actually will dominate for a good 10 to 15 minutes, and they don't necessarily always, they're not the most clinical side, and I think that's cost them a lot more. So
that's why I sorry to cut you off, but that's why I am not a big fan of Callum Wilson.
yeah, he misses a lot
Because he
of
misses a lot of he scores some goals, but he does miss a lot of opportunities. He on Match of the Day, it looks like he's clinical. But it's not disrespect. Like, I do think he's a good player.
You saying it
And
takes
I
him
do
four
think he
chances
should
to
be in
score
the.
one?
Not all the time though, because some matches he'll get 2 and just stick them away. I just think that maybe it is injury, and he needs just the games to
Like
keep him
match fit, match
consistent.
up.
Yeah, but I think that this is the because he is the goal scorer, and Josh King is the guy who's he links up, he does the graft, he's able to beat people and wins a lot of penalties, and he does a lot for the team. So this is kind of, he's had 2 bad injuries. You'd assume that this is the season for him to push on.
Josh King, I just don't know. I don't know where he's gonna go. I just feel this is it for him, and it's unfortunate.
But that's
sometimes just being a sturdy pro isn't a bad thing, innit? I think we have this I wouldn't even say culture of like where like, sometimes just stay at your level, innit? In terms of, for him, I feel that the manager obviously trusts him enough because he hasn't gone out and spent big to replace him. They've been in the league, this is their 4th season.
I think, look, if you had a son and he turned out to be Josh King,
you'd be the most proudest man in the world. Of course, without a shadow of a doubt.
Like,
but he must have been hurt in this World Cup, looking and thinking to myself, why am I not there? There's no player worth their worth in salt.
He's Norwegian, right?
He's Norwegian though.
I'm saying, but you're just looking at the World Cup and thinking to myself, well, how am I going to get there?
Oh, that's unfortunate, I guess, isn't it? Like I said, I have my thoughts on international football. And
we had a bag of chat about that last time.
You'll see the agenda.
So have we reviewed the results?
We've pretty much gone through all the results.